Part 36. I am the strongest officer of the Straw Hats. Author, Super Red. Chapter 354. When Bayou asked so many sudden questions, the Blue Skull was stunned for a moment, and then said, "Brother, you suddenly ask so many questions, and I didn't know how to answer you for a while." Bayou's eyes were wrong at this time. They were full of murderous intent. When the Blue Skull and Bayou's eyes looked at each other, the good guy got scared. Okay, let's start with the first question. I'm an elf. The second question is, I am what they call a night devil, but I have never done anything evil. As for why I became a night devil, I don't know. Anyway, you just need to know that I am a good elf. We can solve the third and fourth problems together, that is, I can take you back to the dwarf tribe now. Don't worry, I have lived on this island for decades, and I am familiar with this road. After saying this, Bayou clearly felt that the elf in front of him had just made a proud expression. Then hurry up, there are too many mosquitoes here. Bayou thought for a while and said, he is a little hungry now. Although he has fairy beans on him, the fairy beans are not as delicious as big fish and meat. Now he has begun to miss the food of the dwarves. On the other side, the large army has already. We have returned to the dwarf tribe, and are waiting for Lilam to go to the chief's hall. In the hall, the lights are bright, and the chief is pacing back and forth uneasily. The Straw Hats and Renekton have already gone out. It's been a day, and I'm afraid I'm in trouble if I haven't come back at this time. Just then, the guards outside reported that Renekton and the Straw Hats were back. Upon hearing the news, the female chief immediately collapsed from her throne. She stood up. How could she still have the posture of a queen at this time? She was now a mother who had lost her daughter and then found it again. Under the guidance of the guards, several people walked out of the hall, and at this time Renekton and Straw Hat the gang has arrived. After seeing the chief, Renekton took the lead in saluting. "Chief Lay, get up quickly." After saying this, the female chief came to Luffy, and Luffy also knowingly put down Lilam. Lilam was still in a coma at this time, but just now Chopper, I have already seen it, and there is no big problem. It should be that I was injected with a sedative or something like that. Now I am in a coma. I just need proper rest and the medicine prepared by it to recover. After hearing that her daughter was okay, the female chief said he was also relieved, but the next second he discovered that the Straw Hats were missing someone. Because Bayou was special among this group of people, after all, he looked like that man. "Why hasn't your deputy captain come back?" the female chief asked doubtfully. Luffy said calmly at this time, "Oh, it's okay, Bayou has cut off the queen for us, and he is probably on his way back now." But except for Luffy's accident, everyone else was worried at this time. After all, it had been a while since they came out, and during this period, they deliberately waited for Bayou on the road, but did not see him. Robin even thought about it again and again. He wanted to go back to find Bayou, but the forest at night was too dark, and he could encounter the so-called night demon mentioned by the dwarves at any time. Robin did not go after everyone tried their best to stop him. Seemingly seeing through Robin's worries, Nami came to Robin and patted Robin on the shoulder and said, "Don't worry, Bayou will be fine. He is so strong that the giants can't do anything to him." Robin relaxed a little after hearing this. "Yes, caring really makes you confused. Who is Bayou?" "He is a member of the 5 old stars of the Hard Steel Navy. Although these giants have been strengthened, they are still different compared to the 5 old stars. There are some differences, right? Dear guests, you should be tired now, so go and rest first. We have prepared good accommodation for you. We hope you will be satisfied." The female chief looked at everyone and said. She really didn't expect that since these people could really save her daughter, they were the giant tribe, the strongest tribe on the island, and they had been fighting with them for hundreds of years. Tribe, she still knows the strength of the giants very well. But after hearing that Bayu stayed to break the queen in order to protect them, she actually felt very uneasy. Because she knew the strength of the giants, she knew better that one person could break the queen. What a powerful enemy she would face. It's just that Bayu was much stronger than she thought. After everyone said goodbye to the female chief, they walked towards the outside of the hall, but a figure made the female chief stunned for a moment. The back looks like, is it my imagination? The female chief calmed down, and then asked the guards to carry Lilam to the bedroom to rest. At this time, Bayu was rushing with the blue skull. Are you kidding me? How come we are still here? The ground is spinning in circles, do you know the way? Bayu is very confused now. He and the blue skull have been wandering here for a long time, and they still haven't seen the way back. This makes Bayu very angry. At the moment, I feel like this thing is lying to myself. It's strange. I remember that this is the right way to go to the dwarves. How could this happen? The blue skull touched his big head in a silly way. Of course, the hand was transformed by the blue light around him. Bayu was speechless when he saw the expression of the blue skull. Good guy, this guy is also a road idiot, right? And like Zoro, he is a top-level road idiot. He is the kind of road idiot he doesn't know yet. At this time, Bayu could already conclude that this skull was really a road addict. He immediately found a tree and sat down. He was a little tired from walking. In the past 2 hours, he had been leading the way with this blue skull. Next, he wandered back and forth in place for a long time. Seeing Bayu's expression, the blue skull slowly floated in front of Bayu and said, "Brother, give me another chance. I just remembered it wrong. I will definitely take you with me this time. How about going out?" And Bayu doesn't want to talk to her anymore. She doesn't want to say another word to her. This road idiot is really speechless. The blue skull saw Bayu sleeping motionless on the big tree. After ignoring her, she felt helpless. In fact, it had been many years since she came to this island, and this was the first time she had communicated with other creatures. Bayu was the first one. He was also the first one who was not afraid of her. Here, whether it is dwarves, animals or giants, any race or creature, as long as they see her, their first reaction must be to run away, so she has been wandering in the forest for so many years, and over time her personality has slowly begun to change. He became withdrawn and even turned into a skeleton at night to scare passing creatures. Over time, the legend of the Night Devil spread among this ethnic group. I am the strongest officer of the Straw Hats. Author, Super Red. Chapter 355. After Bayu fell asleep, the blue skull suddenly transformed, and the original ferocious and terrifying appearance had disappeared. It was replaced by a cute little elf, fluttering its little wings, and looking at Bayu, who was sleeping soundly with his big watery eyes. He was very curious about Bayu now. The man in front of him was not afraid of her in the state she was in just now, and he even took the initiative to talk to her. This was the first time. "Who are you? Your aura is different from that of ordinary humans," the elf was thinking in her mind. Of course she wouldn't ask Bayu now. After all, Bayu had been rough on her just now. To be honest, although she was very curious about Bayu now, she was still a little scared. I really can't figure out Bayu. I was worried that I couldn't get out just now. I just fell asleep now. It's too fast. She is so pretty. Her long eyelashes and face are almost catching up with me." The elf looked at Bayu quietly and said. After some observation, she changed back to the skull. After all, she would not show her true face in front of outsiders. It is more convenient to have a blue skull. That's it. Unknowingly, the blue skull fell asleep on Bayu's belly. The first ray of sunlight in the morning shone in the forest, and the warm feeling made Bayu wake up from his sleep. Speaking of which, he had not seen the sunrise for a long time. Wow, Watching the sunrise from such a tall tree is really unique. After getting up, Bayu suddenly felt something pressing on his stomach, something heavy. Looking down, he saw, good guy, this blue skull. Since the head fell asleep on him, it was okay. Bayu stood up directly and shook the blue skull out. This sudden change also woke up the skull. Oops! Trying hard to control and stabilize his figure, the skull looked straight at Bayu, seeming to be silently protesting what Bayu had just done. What are you looking at me for? Bayu said angrily. He was tortured by the skull for several hours last night. He originally thought he could go back last night, but now it's better. He's still in the forest. It's dawn now and the light is much better. Bayus will set off, using his knowledge and domineering power to slowly and bit by bit search for the traces left by everyone yesterday. It is indeed much more convenient during the day than at night. The field of vision is very broad, and soon, Bayu discovered Robin. There was nothing I could do about it. Robin liked to use perfume, and of course the things he took were gifts from him, so Bayu naturally knew the smell very well. Slowly walking along the remaining smell of perfume, Bayu soon found the place where he came last night road. At this time, the blue skull is still following him. Hey, are you done yet? Why are you still following me? Bayu turned back angrily and said to the blue skull. He actually didn't have a good impression of the skull, so he spoke in a very harsh tone. I want to go with you, the blue skull said with some stuttering. Bayu looked at her again and didn't say much, but the pace under his feet couldn't help but speed up a bit. Seeing that the man in front of him didn't reject him, the skull was in a good mood at this time. By the way, what's your name? My name is Undine. What's yours? Undine's little head looked at Bayu and said. At this time, she no longer looked like a scary skeleton. Although she still had the appearance of a skeleton, she looked like a kind skeleton. Seeing that Bayu did not reply to her, she also don't be angry, she will definitely know in the future anyway, and all she needs to do next is to find a way to make herself stay. She is still very confident in her charm. In the dwarf tribe, Robin had not slept all night, and she had not slept all night. They were all waiting for Bayu. One night passed, and since Bayu hadn't come back yet, she was very worried and even started to have random thoughts. After packing up her greetings, she decided to go to the place where she was yesterday to find Bayu, even if she had to break in again. It doesn't matter if she joins the giant tribe. Bayu seems to have become a man she can't let go of. When she walked out of the room, the straw hats were already waiting outside the house. Seeing everyone getting ready, Robin already know what's going on. Come together, we won't leave our lovely first officer and beautiful historian behind. It was Nami who spoke, and Luffy was currently chewing on a big meaty leg that he got from who knows where. Hee, before the war, you have to eat enough, Luffy said with a smile as if he felt everyone's gaze. Although he is usually careless, the safety of the crew is always his first priority. Just when everyone was ready, suddenly a guard ran over. They all knew this guard. He should be the female chief's royal guard. He was also the one who received the reception before. Distinguished guests, your partner is back, but he seems to be bringing something strange. What? Strange thing? At this time, Luffy and everyone were looking at each other, wondering what the guard was talking about. After a while, Bayu had arrived in front of everyone. Haha, you guys got up so early, where are you going? Bayu looked at everyone curiously. Everyone was ready to go. When Robin saw Bayu, he immediately pounced on him. Bayu, where have you been all night? We are all so worried about you. Seeing Robin's appearance, Bayu touched Robin's head and said, you may not believe it, but I got lost last night. When Bayu said this, everyone was stunned. They knew that Bayu was not Zoro or Lucci, but it wasn't surprising when they thought about it. After all, it was indeed easy to lose direction in the forest at night, and so were they. They came back under the leadership of Renekton, otherwise they might not have been able to come back last night. Speaking of Cao arrived. At this time, Renekton also came over from a distance, and he put on his armor again, but when he saw Baiyu coming back, he was stunned for a moment. Why is the good guy back? Renekton was a little surprised at this time. He was very aware of the strength of the giant's higher brothers. He didn't expect Baiyu to come back safe and sound. In the morning, when the Straw Hats were preparing to go to the giants to rescue them, he had already get ready. After all, Baiyu was left behind because of them. The dwarves always repay kindness. Brook, how did you come? Didn't I tell you to watch the ship from the boat? At this moment, Usopp also saw the blue skull behind Baiyu at a glance. Although the color was different, it did look exactly the same as Brook. After all, they were both skulls. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I am the strongest officer of the Straw Hats. Author, Super Red. Chapter 356. Hearing what Usopp said, the Straw Hats also turned around and saw the skull hiding behind Baiyu. Why are you in this shape and where is your body, Brook? Are Sanji and the others here? Nami looked at Undine curiously and said. Apparently they all thought that the skull in front of them was really Brook, so they said this. Are you talking to me? At this moment, Undine said something cautiously. After all, for her, the people in front of her were all strangers. When she spoke, everyone was stunned, as if they were petrified. After a while, the one who came to his senses was Robin. You are not Brook, this world is really magical. Now that there are two people who look like skulls, Robin also stood up from Baiyu's arms and said. Oh my god, it's not Brook. Look at the light next to her. Brook is not blue, Usopp said now. However, a skeleton like Brook suddenly appeared. They still couldn't accept it for the moment, but since he came back with Baiyu, he must be familiar with Baiyu. Hey, don't look at me like that, I'm not familiar with her. After saying this, Baiyu walked directly into the house where Robin lived. Is there anything to eat? I'm starving to death. I haven't eaten all night, so I just ate 2 fairy beans. The taste of the fairy beans is really not good. Hearing what Baiyu said, Robin gave up exploring the blue skull and took out the food from the kitchen. What is your name? Why do you also look like a skull? Oh, by the way, let me tell you that there is a skull in our group that looks very similar to you, but he is like that because of the underworld fruit. Why do you look like this? Nami is like a curious baby now, asking questions. After all, there is such a thing. They are very surprised. I think Brook will be very happy after seeing it. Isn't this the same kind of thing? Ah, what I look like is actually an illusion of my own. I don't originally look like this. After saying that, Undine transformed directly into her previous elf form. Her change made Nami even more curious. Wow, elf, are you an elf? The elf in fairy tales. Baiyu, who was eating food at this time, was also surprised. You must know that although Wendini had turned into this look last night, Baiyu had never seen it. This was the first time that Baiyu had seen Wendini like this. Tiny. Hee, this is what I really look like. The previous one was actually just to scare people. After all, I also want to survive, Undine said with a smile. The reason why she showed her true colors in front of these people is actually because these people are Baiyu's partners. In her opinion, Baiyu is not a bad person, so naturally his companions cannot be either. Bad guy. At this time, Undine was fluttering his wings and flying back and forth in the air, very happy. This was the first time he appeared in public in this way. You know, since coming to this island, she has almost never used this appearance. After all, in her opinion, This island is not peaceful. Only by disguising yourself can she survive well. Where are you from? You must not be an aboriginal here. Nami is still doing her 100,000 whys. At this time, Renekton also walked in. He was originally going to rescue Bayou with everyone, but now, Bayou came back directly, and he was relieved. Now he could go and see his precious god-granddaughter with peace of mind. But just in case, he still called Chopper. After all, Chopper was the only doctor here, and he had seen Chopper for treatment before. When Datura flowers poisoned people, it was so simple. In Renekton's heart, Chopper was already a miracle doctor. Although Chopper seemed to be looking at this little elf, saving people still came first. Although I did check Lilum last night and there was no big problem. I still need to take a look. In one morning, Undine has become very familiar with everyone. Besides Bayou, its favorite person is Nami. After all, Nami he likes her very much and behaves very close to her. What he wants in the end is that since he can control the weather, Wendy is surprised that humans can control the weather. Bayou has not said a word to Wendy all morning. And I said, after all, he had been teased by this little naughty boy for several hours last night. At this time, the female chief also received the notification from the guards. She was very happy after learning that Bayou had returned safely. After all, Bayou did it for her daughter. He will be in deep danger, so condolences are definitely indispensable. Dear guests, thank you for returning my daughter. Without you, I am afraid I will never see my daughter again. As she said that, the female chief put down her scepter, took off her crown, and then thought about everyone making a kneeling gesture. Fortunately, Frankie noticed it in time and stopped it. Mr. Chief, we can't afford your obeisance. Lilum can be considered our friend. Do we still need to write to save our friend? The one who spoke was Luffy. In fact, he had already regarded Lilum as their friend, ever since the first time Lilum interceded for them in front of the female chief. Seeing that he was stopped, the female chief said, in this case, then our dwarves will definitely not be stingy in entertaining our friends. In return, I can ask the most elite craftsman among our dwarves to make a piece of armor for you. When the female chief said this, the crew actually didn't feel anything, because they felt that they didn't actually need the so-called armor, but Bayou was happy now. He knew what these dwarves were capable of, and what they had made, but it must be top quality. Then thank you in advance, Mr. Chief. Bayou stood up and responded. The crew members were all looking at Bayou at this time. Of course, since Bayou did this, he must have his reasons, so the crew members did not need to say anything more. In the afternoon, the chief led everyone to the manufacturing factory. When they entered the factory, everyone's first reaction was that it was too big. It was full of craftsmen at work, and there were weapons and armor on display next to it, as well as some daily necessities. They all looked very delicate, much more delicate than the ones on their ship. Nami's eyes lit up immediately. She had never thought that the dwarves had such craftsmanship before she came. If these things were sold, then I'm afraid they are all priceless treasures. My dear guests, this is the most elite manufacturing factory of our dwarf tribe. It covers almost all weapons and armors that can be manufactured. You just need to communicate with them. After saying that, the female chief waved her hand, and the guard understood and walked directly to the inside of the factory. I am the strongest officer of the Straw Hats. Author, Super Red. Chapter 357. Soon, an old man came out behind the guard. He was very confused when he saw the female chief bringing a group of people over. You know, their place is an important tribal area. Generally, only full-time personnel and female chiefs can come in, but these people in front of them are obviously not from their race. Of course, even if he was unhappy in his heart, he did not say it out loud. After all, it was the female chief who brought it, and there must be a reason. In this tribe, the chief is God, and the chief's orders cannot be disobeyed. This is the ancient tradition of the dwarf tribe. Dear female chief, your presence makes our manufacturing factory really prosperous. Haha, Chief Agri is really good at talking. Let me introduce to you. These are the distinguished guests of our tribe and the benefactors who helped us cure datura flower poison. Therefore, we, the dwarves, promise to build our own for them. Armor. Hearing what the female chief said, Aijali looked at the people in front of him again in disbelief. He did know that someone was curing datura flower poison for the tribe, and his son was also one of the people being cured. However, because of his work, he would not pay too much attention to these things, so after learning about this matter, he did not inquire too much. But today I learned about this matter from the female chief. When the few people in front of me did it, they were also extremely surprised. These people were obviously not dwarves, but more like humans. They would come to help the dwarf tribe. I also expressed my gratitude to everyone at the moment. Then I'll leave it to you to communicate with them. After saying this, the female chief left. After all, as the chief of the clan, she still had many things to deal with every day. In addition to these manufacturing process problems, she definitely did not know as much as Aijali. It doesn't make much sense here. After bidding farewell to the female chief, Agri came back again. He led everyone into his office area. It was different from other office areas. There were no desks and files, but just there is a huge furnace and many various manufacturing tools. Rather than saying that this is Agri's office, it is better to say that this is his private refining workshop. And the weapons that pass through Agri's hands are undoubtedly of the highest quality. He is also the best craftsman in this tribe. The next time is to discuss the details with everyone. But what surprised him was that except Bayu, no one else seemed to have any ideas in this regard. Nami proposed that she just need to take away some weapons or armor made by the old man. After all, Nami has seen that these things are valuable. If they are shipped outside, they will definitely be sold at a good price. As for Bayu, on the other hand, directly took out a piece of black iron from his own space. This piece of black iron is very special. After all, the products produced by the system must be high quality. When Bayu got it before, that is, when he defeated Wulaoxing Mustache, it was just when he got this thing, he didn't know how to use it. After all, it was just a piece of iron, and it was not small. When Agri saw this piece of black iron for the first time, his eyes sparkled. To be honest, he was after working in the manufacturing workshop of the dwarf tribe for so many years. In fact, the level of forging has reached its peak, but there is still no weapon that satisfies him. The reason is actually very simple, that is, the dwarves do not have such good materials. Items, whether it is good or bad, naturally has a lot to do with its raw materials. And the black iron that the man in front of me took out looked extraordinary at first glance. It must be the best of the best. This made the old man couldn't help but touch it. For a moment. What I didn't expect was that as soon as I took advantage of it, a biting cold air slowly passed from the black iron into Agri's body. There was even a bloody mouth on his finger. This black iron is indeed the best among the best. Are you really willing to leave it to me? Aijali looked at Bayu with serious eyes now. He has always been very strict about forging issues. As long as these things are mentioned, the old man suddenly becomes serious. It is precisely because of such concentration, only then can he become the best in this place where dwarf craftsmen are born. Apart from you, I can't think of anyone else who is worthy of forging my black iron. Bayu's eyes were very firm at this time. Hearing what Bayu said, the originally serious Aijali couldn't help but smile. In his opinion, this is the greatest compliment to him, so that Suantai can be forged by his hands. If he comes out, that will be the glory of his life. Okay, since you have said that, I will definitely give you a satisfactory explanation. The next time was for Bayu and Agri to talk about the details of the weapons. Saran also looked at Bayu's piece of black iron. To be honest, he was a little greedy, but he had these three. The swords were all famous swords. To be honest, he actually didn't think that the old man could use this piece of dark iron to make a weapon better than the three swords in his hand. This conversation lasted another 2 hours. At this time, only Robin and Undine were still here. For the others, it was too hot here, and it was simply not a place for people to stay. And if Robin hadn't been waiting for Bayou, she would have died long ago. Let's go. As for Undine, because of her unique physique, she can't feel the heat very well. Okay, then go with what you think, but the construction period of this weapon may be a bit long. Aijali walked out with Bayou with a smile at this time. It could be seen that the two of them had a very good conversation. Then it will be hard work. After saying that, Bayou took Robin's hand and walked out of the manufacturing workshop. Have you finished processing it? Said Robin. Well, that's done, but we may have to stay with the dwarves a little longer. Bayou looked into the distance and said. At this moment, the alarm outside was suddenly sounded. This alarm directly made other dwarves who were still working in stalls outside become nervous. As an outsider, Bayou, naturally I didn't know what happened, so I pulled a dwarf over and asked. What happened? Why are you so panicked? The dwarf naturally knows Bayou. Distinguished guests, this is our clan alarm. Normally it will not sound. It will only sound when foreigners invade. Hearing what the dwarf said, Bayou seemed to realize something. He knew without thinking that it was probably the giants who were coming. It seems that the wolf I dealt with last night still has some weight among the giants. Thinking like this, Bayou and Robin walked towards the dwarf city gate together. I am the strongest officer of the Straw Hats. Author, Super Red. Chapter 359. However, the giant chief was obviously not that easy to mess with. After feeling that the navy was unable to communicate, he ordered the giants to prepare for battle. At this time, the dwarf soldiers were a little at a loss. After all, they were originally going to deal with the giants, but now it seems that the target of the attack will change. The giants are also very confused. At this time, Qingtian was still thinking about avenging his brother, so he also came to the giant chief and said, Chief, aren't our enemies the dwarf tribe? Unfortunately, they. But before Qingtian could finish speaking, the leader of the giant clan had planned his words. Now is not the time to think about this. Don't you see that the navy is like a mad dog now? Although the dwarves are also our enemies, now is not the time to argue with them. If we lose this battle with the navy, I'm afraid our entire tribe is gone. After saying this to Qingtian, the giant chief also walked directly to the dwarf camp. This also shocked the dwarf soldiers. You must know that the giant chief's strong body was moving step by step. As they approached, the sense of oppression was still very strong. Immediately, some people wanted to attack. After all, the giants were enemies in front of them. But the dwarf chief was acting uncharacteristically. Put down your weapons and don't attack. After saying that, he took a step forward and walked towards the position of the giant chief. At present, many soldiers of the giants and dwarves have already been engaged in the battle against the navy. It seems that many of them have begun to avoid their respective troops. In the back, the chiefs of the two tribes were already standing together. It looked very strange. After all, 10 minutes ago, they were still facing each other, fighting to the death. Limia, I think you have the same idea as me. It is no longer a problem between our two races. Our common enemy is now the navy. Yes, I think you also know that these navies are menacing and attacking us for no reason. I am afraid they are planning to eliminate us. If we do not join forces in this battle, we may be wiped out by the navy from this world. At this time, Qing Pheasant was overlooking the battlefield, and he discovered the meeting of the two groups of chiefs. At that moment, he launched an Ice Age move in the direction of the two of them. The ground was covered with a thick layer of ice, and the ice was still extending, and the target was exactly where the two chiefs were. Baiyu, who was in the distance, naturally saw this scene, and at that moment he confirmed his thoughts. The dwarf chief and the giant chief really knew each other, and they seemed to be very familiar with each other. Baiyu touched his chin thoughtfully. Long before, when he saw the giant chiefs, he felt familiar at first glance. Now that he thinks about it, although they seem to be of different races, the two chiefs look really good. Somewhat similar. No, they are. But this is not the time to think about this, because the navy from the front has rushed up, and the three generals, including Aokiji, have already entered the battle. The battlefield divided by the Ice Age made the soldiers of the two tribes uncomfortable. This also stems from the climate problem of this island. There is no winter here, so they have never seen ice. This cold feeling makes them very different, and they can't even use their abilities normally. The Ice Age continues to spread. At this time, Ace has already planned to take action. After all, as long as he takes action, the frozen field created by the Ice Age will disappear, but that will definitely expose their position. After all, the Navy is not a fool, and there is only one burning fruit in the world. As if he felt Ace's movements, Baiyu patted Ace's shoulder and said, "It's not the time yet." After that, he continued to stay in the dark. The giant chief also joined the battle, his huge figure transformed into a giant bear, and the sharp claws of his hand tore through the ice extending from the green pheasant Ice Age. Then he directly thought about Aokihiko and rushed towards him. He had already felt that among the people who took action at this time, Aokihiko was the main force, and the terrifying freezing ability was what the two tribes were most afraid of. As long as he was eliminated first, then the fate of the tribe would be the combat effectiveness will be greatly improved. At this time, the battlefield was already in a fight, and since the giant chiefs and the dwarf chiefs had decided to form an alliance, the soldiers of the two groups naturally had only one enemy, and that was the navy. In fact, as early as when the two tribes started fighting the navy, they already had a tacit understanding that they would not take action against the two tribes. It's just that after receiving the exact order, they cooperated more skillfully. It seems that this is not the first time they have cooperated. The tacit understanding seems to come from blood. This also makes the people of the two tribes feel very strange. After all, they have been hostile forces for so many years and have never cooperated once. Disgusting pests, I proposed to destroy this race at the beginning, but you insisted on staying. Now it's okay, they have grown up again, the blonde old man among the 5 old stars said as he looked at the battlefield in the distance. Haha, they are just like our captive pets. Their ancestors were not our opponents back then. Do you think these dolls will be our opponents? It's just after dinner entertainment, the old man with the long beard said. At this time, the old man with 5 old stars and glasses standing in front could no longer bear it and rushed forward. During this period, his hands were itchy and he never had a chance to vent. He was talking to Straw Hat before. When a group of people were fighting, they suffered a lot from Baiyu. This was something he had not tried in decades. How could his arrogant heart allow such a thing to happen? He was full of resentment. Vented. This old guy seems to be holding back his nerves. Let him go, let him vent, the 5 old stars chatted leisurely and elegantly. In their opinion, all races on this island will disappear from this world today. The Straw Hats are growing too fast, and they cannot let the Straw Hats come. Here, I learned about the secrets left here. After all, only the dead will keep secrets forever. In the blink of an eye, the old man with glasses appeared in front of the giant chief. He then struck the giant chief with a precise knife. This knife has the old man's domineering power and the power of his nightmare attached to it. Now that the knife has cut into the body of the giant bear, blood is flowing downwards. Rixum. The dwarf female chief was stunned when she saw this scene. She shouted hard, but she did not have the ability to save the giant chief. After all, she was not a combatant. Rixum is a bear. The claws firmly grasped the old man's knife with glasses, as if trying to pull it out. This move also surprised the old man with glasses. The lives of the remnants of your giant clan are indeed hard, just as hard as your dead father. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I am the strongest officer of the Straw Hats. Author, Super Red. Chapter 360. As soon as these words came out, Rixum's eyes obviously changed. Seeing Rixum's shocked expression, the old man with glasses smiled. Why, you still don't know how your dead father died, right? You. Rixum was already a little manic at this time, and his eyes changed from their original color to blood red. Anyway, you all have to die today, so I will tell you that your dead father, like you, died on my nightmare. Speaking of which, he is much more powerful than you. This claw mark on my body is the result of worship given by your dead father. Hearing this, Rixum could no longer suppress the violent blood in his body. The hair on his body had stood up at this moment, and the sharp claws on his hands were sharper than before. But at this time, he had been pierced by the nightmare, the blood was also flowing continuously, and he knew that he might not have much time. In the distance, Bayou also saw this scene, but what he had just seen and heard was domineering. Listening to Wanwu had already heard the speech of the old man with glasses, and he understood at the moment, I'm afraid that there is a misunderstanding between the dwarves and the giants, and this misunderstanding lies with Rixum's dead father. Bayou came to the female chief at this time, and the female chief was a little at a loss. She could only order her side the soldiers went to rescue Rixum, but these dwarf soldiers were no match for the admirals. They were all gone before they even got close. Do you need my help? Bayou said, looking at the female chief who was already crying in front of him. To be honest, he didn't know why the female chief was crying. Aren't there two tribes enemies? This made Bayou and others confused. Seeing this, the female chief, Bayou actually already knows the answer. Let's go, everyone, since the navy is also their enemy, it's easy to handle. Bayou looked at his friends behind him and said. I've wanted to do it for a long time. If Nami hadn't kept stopping me, I would have done it, Luffy said with a smile. Don't worry, I will save that one. Bayou didn't know the name of the giant chief at this moment, so he rushed out immediately. Fire Fist. Huge flames began to sweep across the battlefield. This familiar scene made King Z stunned. Of course he knew whose ability this was. Ace. The Straw Hats, waiting to be puzzled, the navy looked towards the direction from which the Fire Fist flew. Sure enough, at this time, the Straw Hats appeared on the battlefield out of thin air. What? Why are they here? The 5 old stars were startled when they saw the people coming. They had just fought with the Straw Hats not long ago. I didn't expect that several of them were here too. Marshal, there is a pirate ship approaching this island in the distance, said the scout in the navy. What? Why are there other pirates? Ching Pheasant was very confused at this moment. The next second, he thought of a possibility. Could it be the Straw Hats? Usopp naturally discovered the situation at this time. After all, he had a telescope in his hand. That is the pirate flag of the Handsome Pirates, as well as the Bader Club, the violent group of the Land of Flowers. It is said that there were 6 pirate ships in total. Luffy, the rest of our pirate group are here, Usopp notified Luffy immediately after seeing this information. Luffy was very excited at this time. This time the Navy brought more troops than before, and it was basically the main force of the entire Navy. And since this all-out attack was to destroy these 2 tribes, Bayou had already arrived at the side of the old man with glasses. The moment he saw the person clearly, the old man with glasses was obviously a little panicked, and the knife in his hand was shaking. For a moment. Then one hand pulled out the nightmare that stabbed Rixum and slashed towards Bayou. After the last battle, he thought about the man in front of him all the time. It was a shame for him, and it was engraved in his heart. The shame in my heart. But how could someone like him be Bayou's opponent? It was also the familiar 8-gate Dungia. After opening it, I directly hit Zixiang with one hand, and the distorted air hit the bald head with glasses. The powerful force that broke out. Power, so that the old man with glasses can only use his nightmare to block his chest to resist this powerful force. Boom produced a huge sonic boom in the air. Rixum was shocked when he saw this scene. He didn't expect that the young man in his 20s before him had such power. He had seen the power of the old man with glasses. The knife just penetrated his defense, and his strength was obviously extraordinary. But now that he saw Bayou take action, the old man with glasses could only parry. This is really no harm without comparison. He was planning to let the dwarves fight before. As for Izuku Bayou, it seems that he is really overestimating his abilities. I didn't expect that we met again so soon. Why didn't you win last time? Bayou said while looking at the old man who was already out of breath. At this time, the old man's face was red and his blood was rising. This punch had already made him feel that his internal organs were shaken. Boy, since you are on this island, I really miscalculated, but today I will make sure you never come back. Oh. Interesting, let me see what you can do, Bayou said looking at the old man in front of him. But then, as he expected, the old men who had fought before also came up. After all, Bayou is not a different person. If they don't take action, the old man with glasses will definitely not be able to do anything. It's a pity that there is no Cyborg Kong this time. For Bayou, rather than thinking about these fights, he would rather fight Cyborg Kong. After all, the old man seems to be more powerful. The cooperation of several people seemed to be in perfect harmony, and the giant clan leader also joined the battle at this time. Although he was injured now, the war bloodline also made him more excited, and he was eager to fight. Leave this bald man with glasses to me. Rixum came to Bayou and said, after all, he just learned that his father was killed by this old man with glasses, so he wanted to take revenge himself. No problem, the rest, 1, 2, 3, leave these 3 to me. Bayou pointed his finger at the 3 of the 5 old stars standing in front of him and said. As soon as he finished speaking, Bayou rushed out. In his current state, all 8 doors were opened, and that speed was no joke. On the shore of the island, other pirate ships of the Straw Hat Pirates had already docked. Now that they were getting closer, Luffy also saw these people. At that moment, he also broke into a smile. Everyone is here, and it's lively now. Originally, after the battle in the Water City, everyone left early, but we didn't expect to meet again so soon. Moreover, since all the members of the 7th team are here this time, this is an unprecedented reunion. Look at it. The Straw Hats were overjoyed to see the figures landing on the island one by one. These are all their family assets. I am the strongest officer of the Straw Hats. Author, Super Red. Chapter 361. The most enthusiastic one among them is naturally Bartolomeo, a barrier fruit user. He was so happy to see Bayou and others. After all, these were his idols. If it weren't for the fact that he had a group of younger brothers, he would have thought of going to Luffy's ship. It's just a pity that he is a person who values love and justice, and if he leads a pirate group, he can also be of greater help to Luffy, Bayou and others. The captains of other divisions are also ashore now. Trouble, who leaked the news and why are these people here? Aoji is already a little frustrated now. You must know that the manpower and material resources they mobilized this time were enough to raise the island to the ground, but the changes now are a bit beyond his expectations. The remaining members of the Straw Hat Pirates group are all come, and the two races on the island will regard them as enemies again. Now thinking about it, it was really too careless. If they knew that the Straw Hat Pirates were here, they would definitely not tell the secret, and they would definitely not show up. At this time, they are enemies of the giants. After all, in that case, the giants will definitely be on their side, but it is too late to say this now. Now the battlefield has begun, and everyone on this island will be their enemies. Buzz buzz, the huge sound of warships sounded again. This sound was very familiar to him. It was the sound made by the exclusive warship of Navy Commander Gangu Kong. There was no mistaking it. It seems that our reinforcements have also arrived. King Ji, who was still a little decadent at first, relaxed a lot after looking at the approaching giant bear in the distance. Inside the giant bear, Cyborg Kong looked at the situation on the island at this time. "Commander, the Revolutionary Army is also here, not far behind us." A soldier from CP0 came to Cyborg Kong and said. At this time, Cyborg Kong looked serious. He originally rushed to the island after getting the news, but what he didn't expect was that these remnants of the Revolutionary Army, since I also got the news and acted so fast. "Speed up, we must go ashore as soon as possible to join them." After saying this, Cyborg Kong sat back on his lounge chair. Not far behind the dire bear, the Revolutionary Army's ships were also. They quickly approached the island. It turned out that their original destination was this giant island. When Long saw the pirate flags of the pirate ships under Luffy's command, he was also very curious. After all, he didn't know that his son was also here. Of course, since the Straw Hats are here, it also increases the chances of winning this operation for their Revolutionary Army. Crows are flying in the sky, covering the ship. "Karas, hurry up, I am correct that these are all Luffy's men, so Luffy must be on this island." Although we had only met a few people a week ago, Sob was already a little impatient at this time. Okay, I got it." Karas was a little speechless. This usually mature and steady chief of staff seemed to become uneasy as soon as he heard the news about Luffy. On the battlefield, the battle was still going on at this time. The navy moved very quickly, and under the command of Straw Hat, the sea before the pirate ship landed on the island, they had already prepared for battle. This time it was another fierce battle for them. The pacifist cyborgs also came to the battlefield this time, and their makers followed them. Dr. Vegapunk. His purpose this time is very simple, that is, to explore the secrets of the dwarves. He knows that this giant island has the legend of the dwarves. These guys who are good at manufacturing must have their own uniqueness. If some intelligence can be obtained from them, it will definitely be of great help to the Navy's future high-tech facilities. In fact, the current pacifist has encountered a bottleneck, and it will definitely not be able to break through in a short time. He needs to find a way, make this human weapon more powerful. His goal is for pacifists to confront fruit abilities head-on. That is his goal and his direction. Bayou, on his side, is still fighting with several other 5 old stars at this time. In fact, Bayou already knows about their strength and abilities during the confrontation. "You guys come together." Bayou looked at Wulaoxing and said. After hearing this, Wulaoxing didn't take any action. The only one fighting at this time was the old man with glasses, but his opponent has now become a giant chief. "Since you won't come, then I will take action." Bayou glanced at Wulaoxing with disdain. He knew that his strength had already shocked the so-called highest combat power of the world government. The ghostly figure moved quickly towards Wulaoxing. At that speed, even Wulaoxing was as powerful as Wulaoxing. They could not see clearly and looked very strange. What they didn't know was that Bayou's Mangekyo blood will eye had been fully activated at this time, and the movements of these people had been completely captured by him. No matter what their next step, whatever he would do, Bayou would react before then. Sure enough, after the blonde old man saw Bayou coming, he transformed into a modified human form just like the last battle. Dr. Vegapunk looked at this time he entered the battlefield on Wulaoxing's side. After all, he had also participated in the transformation of the blonde old man's body, so there was no need to say much about its strength. But what he didn't expect was that since the opponent in front of Wulaoxing was a man who looked like he was only in his 20s or 30s. A young man aged 10 years old. A laser shot out from the palm of the blonde old man's hand. The laser looked the same as the laser shot by the pacifists, but its power was extraordinary. It could even be compared with the laser shot by Kizaru's shining fruit. This Baiyu was also very surprised. After all, the old man had never used this ability during their first fight. This is a good trick. Where did you learn it? Baiyu said after looking at the giant soldier behind him who was blown away by the laser he dodged. Seeing that his move failed, the blonde old man was not angry. Anyway, they came well prepared today, so naturally they wouldn't do it like this. Will be defeated. The mustache looked at the blonde old man in front of him. He still had the same ability as before, strengthened. I saw that the blonde old man who was originally very calm began to change after being touched by the mustache. The originally golden her hair has also turned black, and her whole body is wrapped in domineering aura. Damn it, how can you use domineering power to transform people? It really gave me a lot of experience. Baiyu was stunned when he saw the blonde old man at this time. But it was not suitable for him to be surprised at this time, because the battle was still going on, and people were injured or even died on the battlefield every second. But what surprised him the most was this: why is the mustache still alive? You must know that his previous blow completely destroyed the mustache, and he was also sure that the mustache's vital signs were very low at that time, and it was basically impossible to survive. It seems that the Navy also has its own trump card, Baiyu thought as he looked at the blonde old man. I am the strongest officer of the Straw Hats. Author, Super Red. Chapter 362. But for Baiyu, it doesn't matter what kind of trump card he has. After all, he doesn't believe there is a trump card that is better than his system. Sabo has now surpassed the naval fleet with the power of the Crow and arrived at the frontal battlefield. But even the Chief of Staff of the Revolutionary Army, who had experienced hundreds of battles, had to be impressed when he saw the battle in front of him. The scale of this battle is probably tens of thousands of people, including giants, dwarves, the Navy, the Straw Hats, and their Revolutionary Army. The pacifists on the battlefield are wreaking havoc on the defensive offensive built by the dwarves. As cyborg clones, they are fearless even in the face of the most powerful enemy. This also gave the dwarf soldiers a headache. Countless rains and lasers were fired from the dwarf defense offensive. The female chief was actively directing her soldiers as a commander. As for the display of the giants, the leader level has enlarged his body and started to fight against the Navy. The number of the Navy is too huge, and it would be too difficult to deal with it unless it becomes giant. The giant chief is still fighting with the old man with glasses. Is that your level? Far worse than your father, the old man with glasses mocked the giant chief in front of him. With a roar, Rixum had completely gone berserk at this time. This was the strongest state of mind of his bear man fruit ability, the violent mode. Every subsequent punch was powerful. It will be very powerful. When he punched the old man with glasses on the blade for the first time, the old man with glasses felt something was wrong. The force was not as strong as before. And the blonde old man on Baiyu's side had completed the final evolution at this time. The dark hands were filled with domineering energy. The energy laser was extremely contracted at this time, and it seemed that this blow might be the strongest domineering blow to block the blonde old man. However, Baiyu did not think about avoiding it at this moment, but directly he rushed forward and blocked a fist directly at the muzzle of the cannon transformed into the two hands of the blonde old man. This sudden scene made the blonde old man panic for a moment. He just thought that Baiyu had lost his mind. Even Kaido, the strongest creature today, would not be able to catch the shot with his own body. In his opinion, Bai was completely overestimating his capabilities. Sizzling boom, the fully charged laser burst out in the next second. At the moment of ejaculation, a strange smile appeared on the face of the blonde old man. Boy, you are dead and go to hell. But this thought only lasted for a moment. The next second, he was confused, because the super electronic cannon that he originally regarded as the most powerful one disappeared out of thin air. At this time, there seemed to be more in front of him and Bai. A space crack appeared, and when the laser penetrated the space crack, it seemed to be absorbed by the terrifying crack. What's going on? How is this possible? How could my strongest blow just disappear into thin air? The blonde old man was still silent in the scene just now. Bai's pupils were bleeding out at this time. The divine power just now also consumed a lot of his strength, but it didn't matter, because the blonde old man and the mustache were regarded as their trump card. Was completely resolved by him. Why, isn't this the trump card you're talking about? It's so vulnerable to me. Bai said arrogantly after wiping the blood from the corners of his eyes. No, 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 how is it possible? It's impossible. There's no way anyone in this world can do it. No, the blonde old man had already lost his mind. He couldn't believe that this trick of his had never failed since it was developed. How could he accept it now that it would fail in the hands of a young man? At the moment, and was preparing to charge up for the second shot. However, how could Bai let him succeed? Although he could still use his divine power to deflect the second shot, he was already close, so there was no need to do so. In fact, the reason why he just let the blonde old man use this move completely to destroy his self-confidence. The best way to defeat the enemy is to defeat his inner defense line. Only in this way will he be completely defeated. Yakai. Boom. Boom, the bloody steam appeared on Bai's body again, and kicked out, directly breaking off the two hands of the blonde old man in front of him that had been transformed into cannon barrels. And the 8-character figure standing behind the blonde old man, who was even more shocked. He saw the whole process with his own eyes. You all have to die here today. Just when Bai was about to finish losing the blonde old man and mustache in the next second, the fog suddenly filled up around him, blocking Bai's vision. Cyborg Kong also dared to come at this last moment and saw the blonde old man. With the frightened mustache, Cyborg Kong was stunned. He didn't expect that since this young man had such great power, he was stronger than all the people he had encountered before, and his strength was already far greater. Far beyond the Yonko level. Boy, do you know what you are doing now? You are adjusting the authority of the world government. Gang Gakong held a pipe in his mouth, exhaled a puff of smoke and looked at Bai. Oh? The authority of world government? Sorry, the world government has no reputation in my case. My appearance is to overthrow the so-called justice of the world government. You are just a lackey in front of the world government, a robber wearing a cloak of justice. Bai didn't hesitate with his words, attacking the navy and the world government unscrupulously. Boy, you have to pay the price you deserve. Seeing that his mouth could not escape Bai, Cyborg Kong stopped talking at this moment. The ape fruit ability was activated at this moment, and Cyborg Kong, who had originally had strong muscles, still turned into a huge King Kong. And this time, his transformation was more complete than the previous one. All the muscles in his body were wrapped in chi, his huge figure was completely highlighted at this moment. Soon a strange scene appeared, and the huge figure disappeared directly into the mist. Bai was very surprised. This mist was obviously not the ability of Gang Gukong. Among the 4 people on the battlefield, only the long-bearded one did not take action at this time. He had been standing there since the beginning of the battle. It was speculated that underneath, Bai knew that this might be the ability to grow a beard. At this time, his Mangekyo blood will icon no longer be used for the time being. The divine power he just consumed was too large and he needs a buffering time. Originally, This mist-like skill was simply not worth mentioning in front of the kaleidoscope blood will I, but now it has indeed brought him a lot of trouble. This fog is obviously unusual. Since Bayou's knowledge, color, and domineering energy cannot peek into the environment in the fog, and the things around him are completely insensible, this fog seems to be gradually depriving him of his five senses, weakening his perception bit by bit. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I am the strongest officer of the Straw Hats. Author, Super Red. Chapter 363. And Cyborg Kong, who had just disappeared, had disappeared. Of course, Bayou would not be stupid enough to think that Cyborg Kong had just escaped. After all, he has transformed, so it must be a fight to the death. It's just that in this fog, Cyborg Kong's huge figure can be completely concealed. The next second, a huge fist suddenly hit him in the fog, heading straight towards Bayou's life gate. Fortunately, Bayou's instinctive reaction avoided the punch. And now he could clearly feel that his own actions had become sluggish. Sure enough, no one in the 5 old stars is simple. This fog is too weird, and we must find a way to break through it as soon as possible. Bayou reminded himself like this in his heart, and his mind was now slightly affected. This mist seemed to have a hypnotic effect. After seeing his punch being dodged, the fist that had just appeared disappeared into the mist again. In the following time, there were more and more tentative attacks, but Bayou's consciousness became more and more confused. In the end, Bayou was knocked down by that powerful and heavy punch. After the punch hit, he made Bayou fly backwards, and blood spurted out from his mouth. Haha, you are nothing more than that. In this fog, no one can escape. Soon, you will completely lose consciousness and then be ravaged to death by the steel skeleton. The voice that spoke was a long beard, and Bayou could hear his voice clearly, but couldn't sense his location. It is indeed the ability to grow a beard. After confirming his thoughts, Bayou was not in a hurry. In fact, he took the punch just now on purpose in order to wake up. The fog had a great influence on him, and it had begun to gradually deprive him of his consciousness. So he had to take such a punch to wake himself up. Of course, this punch is risky. After all, it is no joke to punch the steel frame in the state of victory, but Bayou is so confident, he has absolute confidence in his defense. After all, with all 8 doors open now, there is no reason why he can't withstand Cyborg Kong's attack. In the following time, it was still the same as before. Cyborg Kong continued his attack. However, what made him feel a little weird was that Bayou seemed to move quickly after taking his punch. This had never happened before. He naturally knew the ability to grow a beard, and he also knew that in this mist what will people face? This is not the first time that he and Longbeard have cooperated. Countless pirates have fallen under their hands. But no one can persist for so long like Bayou. But for Cyborg Kong, Bayou now he is just struggling to his death. No one can escape from this fog. As long as growing a beard does not remove his ability, in this fog, even those who are regarded as enemies will have no effect on seeing, hearing, and color. That's the scary thing about having a beard. Suddenly, the long-bearded man's eyes changed, because he felt that Bayou seemed to be walking towards him. How could it be possible? He probably didn't know my location. It was probably a blind cat that encountered a dead mouse. Longbeard was surprised when he sensed Bayou's movement trajectory, but it was only for a moment. He didn't believe that anyone could distinguish the direction in his own fog. You know, in order to prove how powerful his ability is, even the most advanced detection robot was found, equipped with the most cutting-edge technology. However, even that kind of thing could not sense his existence in the fog, let alone humans. But is Chu Feng a normal human being? But it's systematic, he is the chosen one. And Longbeard's perception is indeed correct, because Chu Feng's target is him, and at this time, his kaleidoscope blood chakra eye has finished cooling down, and the brief blindness has ended. It's over. The Manjikyo blood chakra eye that was opened again found Changbeard at the first glance. At this time, Changbeard was crossing his arms, looking at Cyborg as if watching a performance and thinking about his fist. It seemed that he and Cyborg Kong was just the two performers, and he was the audience. With the 8-door armor fully open, Baiyu was very fast. In the gap between Cyborg Kong's punch, he rushed towards Longbeard. The two people, who were still a few hundred meters away from each other at a safe distance, were face to face in the next second. Baiyu suddenly appeared in front of him, making Longbeard jump. What? How could you? At this time, Longbeard suddenly saw Baiyu's handsome face with that weird smile. Before he could finish his next words, Baiyu punched out, and the powerful force filled the space. Twisted, a punch hit Longbeard's face straight. The huge impact caused Longbeard to fly backwards for several hundred meters and hit the ground like a cannonball. The impact point happened to be Aoki Pheasant. At this moment, Aokiji, who was still fighting with Ace, glanced at someone flying over. At first, he thought it was just a small roll. After all, it was normal for someone to be beaten away on the battlefield. But when he saw the person flying over clearly, he was confused. Isn't that the Longbeard among the 5 old stars? One of the highest combat forces in the world government and the powerful force behind the navy. But what is going on? Who can have it? Such a powerful force can achieve this step, is it possible? Thinking of this, Qingji subconsciously looked in the direction of Baiyu. Sure enough, Baiyu was also looking in his direction at this time, and Gangu Kong was rushing towards Baiyu. Another powerful and heavy kick. This kick is the same as before, with Yakai's terrifying destructive power. The fog disappears. At this time, there is no negative state that can affect Baiyu. He is now the strongest state. And his kick was to finish off Cyborg Kong. What surprised him was that Cyborg Kong would overestimate his ability and want to be like him, using his own hands to catch his blow. But before that leg could reach, the terrifying power fluctuation had already smashed Gangu Kong's entire body towards the ground. A deep pit had formed where Gangu Kong was standing. After the attack fell, the strong Kong, who was as strong as King Kong, lost his ability to resist under this blow. King Z was dumbfounded when he saw this scene. He had never seen such terrifying combat power. Is this still a human being? Who fought with him? They are all the strongest combat forces of the world government. But in his eyes, each one is like a doll, being ravaged mercilessly. At this time, the old man with glasses who was still fighting with Rixum also noticed it. In the battle on Baiyu's side, all their main forces have been deployed. The 4 Wulaoxings have injured 3 people, and he is the only one who has not been fatally injured. It seems that Plan B can only be implemented. The old man with glasses narrowed his eyes slightly and looked at the green bull. I am the strongest officer of the Straw Hats. Author, Super Red. Chapter 364. At this time, the Revolutionary Army had already arrived on the battlefield and entered the battle. The main force on their side was suffering from casualties and injuries, and the more they fought, the more passive they became. If they continue to fight like this, they may be completely wiped out. In that case, even if they can escape back, Lord I will not bypass them. Green Bull immediately shook off Brook, who was fighting with him, and rushed to the warship to sound the alarm. As soon as the alarm sounded, everyone looked here, and a large screen appeared. On the screen was a woman and dozens of bandits, who were currently surrounded by the navy. And their guns were loaded. A man who looked like a lieutenant general was staring forward, looking at the group of people. Baiyu, Luffy and others naturally knew these people, and they stopped their movements as soon as the big screen appeared. Kali Dodden appeared on the big screen. Kali Dodden and his bandit brothers were at their wits' end at this time, and they also had a lot of injuries. After the lieutenant general saw that the big screen had taken over, stood in front of the screen and saluted, then began to introduce what he had done. Report to Wulaoxing that they have controlled all the residents of the East China Sea and this group of bandits as ordered. The first time Luffy saw Kali Dotton, he wanted to rush to the big screen. After all, he had never seen such a thing and didn't know what the big screen was for, but the people inside, she is indeed his adoptive mother. Since these hateful navies would do such a thing, since they are using the entire East China Sea as a threat, Bai looked at the old man with glasses standing in front of him, his eyes filled with murderous intent. Ha ha ha, I guess no introduction is needed. You should all know these people. We have made great preparations for this visit. Now, let us leave, otherwise, everyone in the East China Sea will be buried with us. The old man with eyes glanced at the battlefield fiercely, and then his eyes fell on Baiyu. On this battlefield, for him, perhaps Baiyu is the only existence he is truly afraid of. As long as Baiyu agrees, then others will also. I dare not have any opinions. As for Kali Dotton, he was also obtained by CP0 through collecting intelligence. He is very close to Luffy, Baiyu and others. Luffy even lived with her when he was a child. This is his biggest trump card at present, and the best weapon used to contain the Straw Hats. In fact, he originally did not plan to use this trump card in this incident, but the current situation has forced him to make a decision. Several people from the 5 old stars have been. Baiyu was defeated, as was Cyborg Kong. The people in front of them were too powerful. They were no match for them. But this time they were not fully prepared. After all, they did not expect to encounter the Straw Hat one again so soon. Man, meet Baiyu again. The latest research results of that old guy from Vegapunk haven't been completed yet, otherwise, of course these are just the thoughts of the old man with glasses. How about, let us go, or let the entire East China Sea be buried with us. I believe you will make the right choice. At this time, everyone on the battlefield stopped. Although the giants and dwarves didn't know what was going on, these pirates had fought against a common enemy with them before. The enemy of the enemy is naturally a friend. So the giants also stopped. They didn't want to be enemies with this kind of opponent again. Baiyu's strength, he saw in his eyes, was no longer a player of the same level as him. Enemies like this kind of people were simply asking for death. Road. He is not stupid enough to think that his power exceeds the Navy and the world government. At this time, Luffy tightened his silver teeth and clenched his fists tightly. The combat advantage in front of him was hard won. Maybe this time it was them. This is the best opportunity to destroy the Navy and destroy the world government, and those warriors who bravely killed the enemy also generously sacrificed themselves for them. But since the Navy has already made a plan, it must not be just talk. If the Navy is really, if they are all annihilated here, I am afraid that Donghai will not be spared. They are far away at this time, and it is impossible to rush over to rescue them. Baiyu, who was silent for a moment, looked at the old man in glasses with murderous eyes and said, "Okay, I agree with you. Opinion, I can let you go this time, but if you don't keep your word." Baiyu didn't say the next words, but his eyes told the old man with glasses what he was going to say next. The old man with glasses was a little panicked when he saw that look in his eyes. He didn't expect that the young man in front of him would put so much pressure on him after fighting him several times. When he faced this man now, fear would arise in his heart for no reason. It was the truest thought from his heart. But now, with so many Navy on the battlefield, he will naturally not lose his face. As a 5 old star, he also has his own dignity and prestige. Don't worry, as long as we leave safely, we will fulfill our promises. After all, we are a navy that benefits the people. When he said this, the corners of the old man's mouth with glasses obviously raised an arc. This was a proud expression. In his opinion, they had won this time. These people had given up and they had no choice. No matter what happens to them, although we lost this battle, it doesn't matter anymore. Carry them in for me. Wulaoxing ordered to the CP0 officer beside him. Yes, sir. After saying that, the soldiers in white suits who led them began to slowly carry the seriously injured Wulaoxing and Cyborg Kong to the warship. The closer they got, the more they could feel the warmth of the man in front of them. Powerful, that overlord-colored domineering energy makes people who enter Bayu's domain feel very uncomfortable and have difficulty breathing. Although Bayu has not deliberately activated his overlord-colored domineering energy at this time, the sense of oppression is still not something that ordinary people can bear. Afterwards, when these soldiers talked about this matter, they all called Bayu a god. They had never encountered such a powerful person, as if they had surpassed the limits of human beings. Those strange scarlet eyes, in their view, it is the eye of God, which can spy into people's hearts. At this time, the Navy is also cleaning the battlefield intensively. They don't want to stay here for a moment. These people are too scary, and those ordinary injured people, all the soldiers were abandoned. This is what Wulaoxing did. In his opinion, those things were worthless and taking them back would only be a waste of manpower and material resources. The Navy left behind on the battlefield wailed, but their warships already sailing into the distance.